Scary Mysteries, Twisted News. Killer Kathleen Folbigg and FBI secret gold digging. Terrifying cases of true crime and strange events. Every week, Twisted News dives into two mysterious and scary cases currently happening in our world. This week, we'll tackle the truth behind the chilling case of the convicted baby killer, Kathleen Folbigg, as well as the shocking revelations about the FBI's secret gold digging operation in Pennsylvania. Get ready for Scary Mysteries, Twisted News. Number 1. Kathleen Folbigg. Kathleen never got to enjoy the bliss of childhood. When she was just 2 years old, her father stabbed her mother to death. He served 15 years in prison for the murder before being deported to England. Growing up, Kathleen showed behavioral issues indicative of a troubled past. Then came Craig Folbigg, who she met in Newcastle, Australia. The two got married and had their first child, a boy they named Caleb. As a wife and mother, Kathleen felt complete for a moment in time. But the euphoria only lasted for a few days. When the child was just 19 days old, he died. And since there was no evidence that could be cited for the cause of his death, the hospital ruled it as SIDS, or Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. In 1990, a year after Caleb's death, the couple had a second child, Patrick. The test showed him to be normal and healthy, but 4 months later, he died of seizures. Doctors attributed it to an apparent life-threatening event, or ALTE, another unexplained cause of infant death. Following their second loss, Mr. and Mrs. Folbigg moved to a new home in New South Wales. There, in 1992, they then had their third child, a daughter whom they named Sarah Kathleen. But she died in August of 1993, just 2 months short of her first birthday. 3 years later, in 1996, the couple yet again moved to a new town, and then in August of 97, their fourth child, Laura, was born. The baby girl survived well enough for the family to celebrate her first birthday, but she eventually died in February of 1999 when she was just 18 months old. It was at this moment that the police began to smell something suspicious going on inside the Folbigg home. An investigation was launched. Meanwhile, the couple's marriage fell apart. After Kathleen left, Craig discovered her diary and read an entry which, in his later testimony, made him want to vomit. He immediately took the journal to the police to check out in May of 1999. On April 19, 2001, Kathleen was then arrested and charged with 4 counts of murder. During her trial in 2003, the prosecution argued that the accused had smothered her children, causing them their untimely deaths. Though there was no conclusive forensic evidence to present, the prosecution opted to point out the details of her journals which, according to them, basically contained virtual admissions of guilt. Folbigg said in one of her diary entries, "I feel like the worst mother on earth, scared that Laura will leave me now, like Sarah did. I knew I was short-tempered and cruel sometimes to her, and she left with a bit of help. It can't happen again. I'm ashamed of myself. I can't tell my husband about it because he'll worry about leaving her with me." She was eventually found guilty of the murders and sentenced by the New South Wales Supreme Court judge on October 24, 2003, where she was sentenced to 40 years in jail, of which she would not be viable for parole until she turned 60 years old. Then recently, on March 4, 2021, a group composed of at least 90 scientists called for the pardon and release of the convicted. It would be difficult to refute their claim, as genetic evidence published in November of 2020 stated that Kathleen's 2 girls had genetic mutations that made them susceptible to heart complications. Meanwhile, the two boys may have acquired a potentially lethal genetic mutation that caused the early onset of epilepsy. In a review, it was found out that the prosecution failed to establish the fact that Kathleen smothered her children to death. Folbigg and her advocates are now pleading the Court of Appeals to revert the result of the judicial inquiry on her case. Whether she's guilty or not and will be released is yet to be seen. Number 2. FBI secret digging in Pennsylvania. On March 13, 2018, father and son treasure hunting duo Dennis and Kem Parada led people from the FBI to a site in Dents Run, which is about 135 miles northeast of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This location happens to be riddled with the legend of a gold shipment that got lost during the Civil War. According to the story, in 1863, just before the tragic Battle of Gettysburg began, the Union Army dispatched a huge wagon that was laden with gold bars. This was supposed to be used to pay the Union Army. The wagon's train took off from Wheeling, West Virginia, and made it to St. Mary's, Pennsylvania. At some point after the delivery, however, the shipment disappeared. The Paradas had been searching for the Civil War bounty for decades. On their company's website, Finders Keepers, they said that in 2004 they found a trove of artifacts used during the war. This included knives, canteens, tin cans, animal traps, and even human bones. Their subsequent investigation led them to the discovery of a large metal object that was about 8 feet by 10 feet underneath a fire pit. They believed this to be the lost shipment containing the alleged 52 bars of pure gold, with each weighing around 50 pounds. The problem was, though, that the Paradas couldn't conduct a digging operation because the Dents Run site sits on state land. This damning legal issue may have prompted the treasure hunters to then seek the FBI's assistance. So the FBI then hired a geophysical consulting firm to survey the hilltop site. And indeed, they detected what the Paradas had found earlier, which was a large metallic mass with the density of gold. According to their estimates, that much gold will be worth hundreds of millions of dollars today. Finders Keepers and the FBI then struck an excavation agreement, the details of which have yet to be disclosed. Soon enough, an army of FBI agents stormed the site. For 2 days, they dug the ground looking for the legendary cache of gold. Then things began to take a weird turn when the digging operation started. It was previously agreed that the Paradas would be allowed to watch the entire excavation process. However, on the day that it began, FBI officials forcibly confined the father and son inside their own car. It was only on the final day of the operation that they were given the chance to visit the site. By then, the place was nothing but a huge empty hole. When asked, the FBI declared that their agents didn't find anything in there. This left the Paradas and the rest of those involved in the operation feeling duped. Years have passed, but the Paradas and their company, Finders Keepers, never forgot what the FBI did to them. In March of 2021, the treasure hunting firm sued the feds for what they considered to be a ruse. They believe that the Bureau carted off tons of gold in their armored vehicles following the 2-day excavation at Dents Run. As basis for their accusation, they obtained a string of email conversations confirming the gold search. In an interview with the press, Bill Cluck, the Paradas' legal advisor, showed the documents pointing out to the alleged correspondence between a certain assistant U.S. attorney and the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. As of today, the Parada father and son remain hopeful that the matter will finally be cleared, and if the existence of the bounty is proven, they will be appropriately rewarded for the information they willingly gave the trusted FBI. So there were two of the most chilling and intriguing stories around. The world can be a crazy place, and Twisted News is sure to show you why. If you guys made it to the end of this video and enjoyed it, then please subscribe to our channel. We have new videos coming out every single week for you guys to check out. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.